talent doesn't guarantee anything, and neither does a team full of it. That's the sentence nobody wants to hear when they're 17 years old, with every scout in Europe underlining your name. And it's the same sentence a golden generation of internationals refuses to hear when they're 29, and decorated and somehow still going home early. This video is about both the players who were supposed to be greater and never became it, and the teams, sometimes stuck with those very same players, that collapsed as a collective. In no ways, no individual failure can fully explain. By the end of this, you'll see the pattern. It's rarely about who couldn't play. It's about who wasn't managed, supported, or built properly around the talent they already had. In 2004, a 14-year-old signed a 6-figure Nike deal before he played a single professional minute. Freddy Adu was in the cover of Sports Illustrated. Pele himself said the kid reminded him of a young Pele. He wasn't bad. His rookie MLS season showed real composure. The problem was the machine built around him. A marketing engine that needed a superstar faster than a human being could actually become one. 9 clubs in a decade, a career that should have peaked higher had already quietly ended. Adu's story is about hype outrunning development. You can't fast forward a career. Individually, this front squad had Ribery, Anelka, Evra, Gallas, players who at other tournaments looked genuinely world-class. Collectively, at the 2010 World Cup, they produced one of the most dysfunctional campaigns in tournament history. After a heavy loss to Mexico, star striker Nicolas Anelka was sent home following a reported dressing room clash with the coaching staff. In response, the entire squad refused to train, staging a sit-down strike on the team bus in front of the world's media. France were eliminated in the group stage without winning a single match, finishing bottom of their group, below host South Africa. This wasn't a talent failure, it was a total breakdown in leadership and man management. Our manager, Raymond Dominic, who had lost the dressing room long before the tournament even began, and a federation that let the fracture fester instead of addressing it. Sometimes, the most talented team on paper is the most fragile team in the room. Between 2004 and 2006, Adriano looked like one of the 5 best players alive. A left foot like a cannon, strength that bounced the rear defenders off him, a genuine Ballon d'Or contender at 24. Then his father suddenly died in 2004, and what followed wasn't a normal footballing decline. It was a man in unmanaged grief, sliding into alcohol dependency, disappearing back to Rio for a few weeks while one of Europe's biggest clubs waited, confused with no real infrastructure to help him. By 2009, he was out of Inter's picture entirely. Adriano is the clearest example on this list of an industry with historically zero real mental health support. Everyone saw the decline. Almost nobody asked what was actually happening to the man. No single collapse in football history carries the symbolic weight of this one. Brazil, hosting the World Cup on home soil, 5-time champions, reached the semi-final against Germany, already without the talisman Neymar, injured in the previous round, and their captain Thiago Silva suspended. What followed was 29 minutes in which Germany scored 5 goals. The final score, 7-1, remains the heaviest defeat in Brazilian national team history and one of the most one-sided results ever in a World Cup knockout match. The deeper story here isn't really about the missing 2 players. It's about a Brazilian side that had, for years, prioritized brilliance and emotional passion over the tactical structure Germany's golden generation had spent a decade meticulously building. When the emotional and brilliance plan failed, there was no tactical plan B underneath it. An entire footballing culture's approach was exposed in one half of football. Before Neymar, there was Robinho, a Santos teenager so electric that Real Madrid paid his release clause without hesitation, and Pele called him the closest thing to himself he'd ever seen. Madrid, Galácticos-era chaos, never gave him the platform to dominate. Then in 2008 came the transfer that defines this entire video. Manchester City signed him for a British record fee, not because he was the right tactical fit, but because City's new owners needed a marquee name to announce themselves on deadline day. He was dropped into a mid-table club with no structure to support a superstar, and it went exactly how you'd expect. He was never a bad player, he was a great player used as a billboard. No project in football history assembled more individual Ballon d'Or level talent on one roster and got less collective return out of them than the original Galácticos. Between 2000 and 2005, Real Madrid signed Luis Figo, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo Nazario, David Beckham, and eventually Michael Owen. 5 of the most decorated attacking players on the planet, often for world record fees inside the same 6-year window. It should have been the greatest team ever assembled. Instead, aside from a Champions League win in 2002, largely carried by individual brilliance, the club went without a league title for 3 straight seasons and were knocked out of the Champions League for 4 consecutive years. The problem was never the front 4, it was everything behind them. President Florentino's policy prioritized marketing power and shirt sales over squad balance, and unglamorous, structurally vital players like defensive midfielders Claude Makelele were sold off to help fund the next Galácticos signing. Makelele himself later said the club had effectively removed its engine and replaced it with an expensive accessory. Real Madrid had built the flashiest frontline in the world and forgotten to build a team around it. It's maybe the clearest illustration in this entire video. You cannot buy your way to balance. The Galácticos underperformed. Not because any one of them lacked quality, but because 5 Galácticos stacked into the same areas of the pitch with nothing holding the shape together. It's just expensive chaos. On paper, this was the most gifted England squad in decades. Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Terry, a young Rooney. Newspapers called them favourites to finally end England's decades-long wait for a trophy. Across the Euro 2004 and the 2006 World Cup, they were eliminated in the quarterfinals both times, on penalties both times, without ever truly looking like the best team in the tournament. The recurring explanation from players and pundits since has been remarkably consistent.
And really around that time, we just kind of, our communication just disintegrated. And it was down to really, from my perspective, and Frank will give views after, but the obsession with winning. I didn't want to see Frank have an edge on me. I didn't want to speak to him about anything that he might be able to take away and use to facilitate his team winning, etc. And it just became an unwritten kind of conduct, really.
It's the purest case of a team being less than the sum of its parts. Proof that assembling great individual players is a completely different skill from building a great team. Pato debuted for Milan at 17, scored almost immediately. Instead of a legendary career, muscle injury after muscle injury derailed him, with Milan's own medical staff later criticized for rushing him back too quickly and compounding the damage. Pato is the cruelest kind of underperformer, not one who lacks talent, but one whose body simply wouldn't cooperate with his ambition. In 2010, Spain won the World Cup, playing the most influential football of a generation. 4 years later, the reigning world and European champions were eliminated in the group stage, hammered 5-1 by the Netherlands, then beaten by Chile. The core of the squad, Iniesta, Xavi, Casillas, Ramos, were largely the same players who'd been untouchable in South Africa. What changed was age catching up all at once and a tactical identity the rest of the world had spent 4 years learning to counter. with the squad never rebuilt while there was still time. Proof that even at the very top, underperformance can be systemic, not individual.